It was the night I found myself standing in the dark, holding a stranger down in my backyard, fighting to keep him from running away. My heart was racing, and the weight of the situation hit me all at once. How did we get here? How had things gotten this far? This wasn't what I had imagined Valentine's Day to be like, but it was the night that everything changed. I've been dating my girlfriend for 3 years now. In this story, I will nickname her Emma. It all started when I messaged her on Instagram after I saw her post a story about a concert. We began talking, and it quickly turned into daily conversations. We exchanged numbers, then Snapchat, and after about a week, we met up in person. We hit it off instantly, and by January, we were spending more and more time together. Valentine's Day was approaching, and for once, I wasn't dreading the day. I was just happy I had someone special to share it with. But then, right before Valentine's Day, Emma told me something that completely caught me off guard. She confessed that there was a guy named Jake who had been stalking her for months. Jake was a few years older, and they'd met in a group project at college. At first, he seemed like a normal guy, but then he started following her around campus. He would show up in places she didn't expect, like near her classes or when she was heading home. At first, Emma thought it was a coincidence, but then it became clear that it was anything but. He found out where she lived, and the messages he sent her became more and more creepy. She told me she didn't block him at first because she wanted to see how far he would push things. He sent dozens of strange, obsessive texts that she ignored. It wasn't until he left a box of chocolates on her doorstep that Emma decided to confront him. The note with the chocolates said, "I hope you like the gift I left you." That was the breaking point for her. She texted him back, telling him she was seeing someone now and that he needed to stop contacting her. The situation was already bad, but Emma was worried it could get worse. She feared that Jake had figured out where she lived by following her home one day. As a guy, hearing this made my stomach drop, but I made sure she knew I wouldn't let anything happen to her. I told her I would always have her back. A few days later, Emma showed me a screenshot of a text from a random number asking if the guy she was seeing was me. My name. The text made me uneasy. It felt like Jake was trying to get under my skin, like he wanted to invade our lives even more. Emma said she was thinking about going to the police if this kept happening. I told her, if that's what she needed, I'd go with her, and we would handle it together. Then, Valentine's Day arrived. Emma and I decided to go out to a nice restaurant by the water. It was a beautiful evening, and we sat outside enjoying the cool breeze. As we ate, I noticed a guy sitting on a bench near the parking lot. He had a hat pulled down low over his face, which seemed odd. Emma made a joke, saying, "What if that's Jake?" We laughed it off, but then the guy tilted his head toward us, just enough for us to see his face, then quickly looked away. He got up and walked off. It was a strange feeling, but we tried to brush it off and continue enjoying our night. After dinner, we went back to my place. Emma's parents were at home, but I had the house to myself. We were hanging out on the couch, getting closer, when suddenly Emma pulled away and said, "Did you hear that?" I heard it too. There was a noise from outside. I asked if she wanted me to check, and she nodded. I went out to the backyard, slipping on my shoes, not sure what to expect. When I got outside, I saw a stack of beach chairs knocked over, and I couldn't figure out how it happened. There was no wind, and the chairs weren't exactly light. I walked around the yard, looking for any other signs of what might have caused it. Then, out of the corner of my eye, I saw something. Someone moving in the bushes. My stomach twisted. I froze for a second, my brain struggling to process what I was seeing. It was a person hiding in the bushes. My heart started pounding, and I stepped forward, trying to focus. I could feel my breath catch as I realized what was going on. I wasn't imagining this. There was someone there. I immediately stepped forward, my body on high alert. The man saw me notice him, and he started moving quickly toward me. I couldn't let him get away. I couldn't let him hurt Emma. I tackled him to the ground, holding him down as he struggled to break free. I screamed for Emma to call the police, my voice shaky with adrenaline. Emma ran outside, looking shocked, and when she saw the guy, her face went pale. "Oh my God," she whispered. "That's Jake." My mind raced. I looked down at him and noticed the same shirt he was wearing earlier when we saw him at the restaurant. The police arrived just a few minutes later. They put Jake in handcuffs and questioned him. Emma showed them all the creepy messages Jake had been sending her, and it was clear this wasn't just a harmless crush. Jake was charged with trespassing, and after the police gathered the evidence, they also arrested him for stalking and harassment. He was fined and received a misdemeanor charge. Emma immediately filed for an order of protection, meaning if he ever tried to contact her again, he would be arrested on the spot. Thankfully, Jake hasn't contacted her since that night. He stayed away, and I like to think he's learned his lesson. But the whole experience left me shaken. I had never imagined something like that would happen on a day meant for love, and I'm just glad I was there to protect Emma. It's been a reminder of how far some people will go, and how far I'll go to make sure she's safe. This happened 4 years ago, and it's a story I'll never forget. It was just a few days before Valentine's Day, and my boyfriend Ethan and I had planned a cute dinner to celebrate. It was a tradition for us, just like most couples. As we were walking into the restaurant, I noticed a couple standing outside. They were staring at us strangely, and it made me feel a little uneasy. I nudged Ethan, and we headed inside. Ethan gave his name to the hostess, and she told us there would be a 45-minute wait. She said she'd text us when our table was ready, so we decided to kill some time by going to the mini-golf place across the street. But just as we were about to walk back to his car, the woman from the couple stood up and waved at us. "Hi, I'm Mrs. Gretty," she said, holding out her hand. I felt awkward and glanced at Ethan, unsure of what was going on. I wasn't trying to be rude, so I shook her hand, but I couldn't shake the weird feeling in my gut. She smiled and continued, saying that she and her husband were photographers and thought we made a great couple. She said we'd look amazing in some photos, and that if we followed them to their studio, they could take us there since the wait time for the restaurant would be long. She also mentioned that she didn't have any cards on her, but their studio was just 5 minutes away. My red flags were going off, but Ethan politely declined and said we had other plans. The woman's smile faded, but she sat back down, and we quickly got in the car. I told Ethan that the interaction felt off, and that the husband hadn't said a word the whole time, just sitting there quietly. As we entered the mini-golf place, we were surprised to find it empty. We laughed, trying to shake off the unsettling feeling. But as we played through the rounds, I couldn't stop feeling like something was wrong. The place wasn't very big, so you could see the front door from almost every spot. We were on our 5th round when I heard the entrance bell ring. I turned around and felt my heart drop. It was the same couple. Mrs. Gretty looked around, and when our eyes met, she gave me the creepiest smile. I felt my stomach churn. I told Ethan what happened, and he turned to look. They were getting their golf stuff together when Mrs. Gretty approached us again. "Crazy how we both ended up here," she said. Her husband then added, "We should do Gretty versus Rod." That's when I realized how creepy it all was. Ethan's last name was Rod. How did they know that? We immediately declined, saying we needed to go. Their smiles faded as we quickly left the mini golf course, both of us feeling completely uncomfortable. Ethan suggested we just call it a night and head back to his place since it was closer than mine, and my parents wouldn't be home until Sunday morning. I agreed, but he insisted we'd still go to dinner. He didn't want some random weird couple ruining our night. After sitting in the car for about 15 minutes talking about how strange everything was, we got a text from the restaurant saying our table was ready. We went to dinner, and Ethan insisted on paying since it was Valentine's Day, which was sweet of him since we usually split the bill. As I waited for him to come back from the bathroom, I thought I saw Mrs. Gretty peeking around a corner. I convinced myself it was just my imagination playing tricks on me. But when Ethan came back and we left, we had to take a long road surrounded by trees to get to his place. About 3 to 5 minutes down that road, I noticed a car behind us. I quietly told Ethan, and he made a quick decision to pull into a CVS parking lot. We got out of the car, and I used the restroom, trying to shake off the bad feeling I had. When we came back outside, the car that had been following us was nowhere to be seen. We breathed a sigh of relief and started driving again, but the unease still lingered. We were about halfway down that tree-lined road when suddenly we heard a loud pop. Ethan slammed on the brakes. Both of his front tires had popped. He quickly put 2 and 2 together and ran out of the car. "Get out now," he said urgently. "They're coming." I had no idea what was going on. My heart was racing. Ethan cut the engine, turned off the lights, and locked the doors. We both sat there, scared, as he told me to stay quiet. Then he quickly pulled me out of the car and we ran into the woods, hiding behind some trees and bushes. Ethan called the police, telling them where we were and what was happening. The operator told him to stay on the line, but Ethan didn't want to risk it. He hung up. We lay there, barely breathing, hoping the police would arrive soon. A few minutes later, we heard a car approaching. Ethan told me to lay flat, and we both kept as still as possible. The car came to a stop, and we heard Mrs. Gretty's voice. "We took too long," she muttered, sounding frustrated. A car door slammed, and then the car quickly sped off. We waited a few minutes longer, and soon enough, the police showed up. They took our statements and assured us they'd investigate. We called my sister to pick us up, and Ethan called a tow truck for his car. But even now, 4 years later, we still have no idea what that couple wanted or why they followed us. It's a mystery that still haunts us, but we made it out safe. Now we're married and tell this wild story to our kids every chance we get. This happened back in the fall of 2018, during the semester when I was taking online classes through a pretty prestigious college. I was planning on transferring to my hometown's 4-year university for the winter semester, but in the meantime, I still wanted to meet some new people. I didn't want to be alone, and honestly, it would be nice to meet someone to date. That's when I met Alex on Tinder. We hit it off right away. We had so much in common, and we started dating soon after. But something changed when she came back from Thanksgiving break. She was always sarcastic, but it had shifted into something much sharper, almost mean. What used to be playful teasing had become aggressive, and while there was no physical harm, the way she spoke to me just didn't feel right anymore. I brushed it off, thinking it was just the stress of finals approaching. After winter break, we broke up on the first day of the semester. She had missed her family and was struggling to be away from home. On top of that, she was shy and didn't have many friends here, so she wanted to be by herself most of the time. It wasn't a dramatic breakup, more of a mutual understanding, and I was actually relieved it wasn't me who had to pull the trigger. I didn't really feel sad about it. After a few weeks, I realized there were a lot of issues in the relationship that I had ignored. Valentine's Day was coming up, and I had planned some things for her, so it stung a bit that those plans wouldn't happen. But I decided to reactivate my Tinder account, hoping to find someone to hang out with, someone to keep me company over the holiday. After a couple of days, I matched with Alex, not the ex, but a new one, and we started texting. She was cool, and we quickly moved to Snapchat. Alex was down to hang out on Valentine's Day, and it felt nice to have someone to spend the evening with. We started the night with some McDonald's, watched a movie, and then just walked around downtown. Eventually, we went back to my apartment, where things got more intimate. Everything was great, better than I had expected. She asked if she could stay the night because it was snowing outside and her place was about a 10-minute walk away. I told her she could stay. We fell asleep around 1 a.m. I'm a light sleeper, and around 3 a.m., I woke up when Alex got out of bed. I didn't think much of it at first. She was just heading to the bathroom. She turned the light on, then shut the door so it wouldn't disturb me. I was really tired, so I just went back to sleep. But when I woke up again, around 5:30 a.m., she was no longer in the bed with me. I thought maybe she'd left, but then I saw her clothes still on the ground near mine. I heard a creak, and when I looked up, Alex was standing in the corner of the room, facing away from me. I called her name quietly, but she didn't respond. I turned on the lamp, enough to see her, but not too much to hurt my eyes. I got out of bed and walked over to her. I called her name again, but she didn't respond. It was then that I placed my hand on her shoulder to get her attention. The moment I touched her, she turned around so quickly it was like something out of a horror movie. Her face was completely emotionless, and without warning, she started screaming like a maniac, hitting me in the chest and shoulders. The hits weren't too hard, but I'm a skinny guy, so it hurt a bit. I backed up, falling onto the bed, but she just kept coming, following me and hitting me, still screaming in this unsettling, unnatural way. After about 30 seconds of this, she suddenly ran over to her clothes, grabbed them, and bolted out of my apartment. I was in shock. I quickly ran to the front door, which she had left wide open, and locked it behind me. I turned around and noticed a horrible smell coming from the bathroom. When I opened the door, the stench hit me, and I saw that she had trashed the place. The shower curtain was ripped off, my medicine bag was thrown on the ground, and worst of all, she had defecated and smeared it on the bathroom mirror. I immediately called the police, and they arrived shortly after. They asked if I could show them her Tinder or Snapchat profiles, but of course she had deleted everything. The only thing I had was a screenshot of a cute picture she sent me on Snapchat, but she was using a filter in it, so it was pretty unhelpful. The police couldn't do much except file a report and keep an eye out for her. They advised me to have a friend stay over in case she tried to come back. I called my best friend Rob, who was also taking some of the same classes as Alex. He came over that night and I told him everything. Rob didn't recognize her though, and he had never seen her in class, which was strange considering she said they were in the same courses. We spent the night watching a movie and went to bed around midnight. Around 3 a.m., I woke up to the sound of someone trying to open my front door. It went on for about a minute before it stopped. I got up and looked through the peephole, but there was no one there. I didn't sleep much after that. Nothing has happened since, but I still feel uneasy. I don't know what Alex's deal was, and I'll never understand what drove her to do that. It still freaks me out, and every time I hear something outside, I remember that night.